he going to be playing defense or forward? Shut up. Nick Robertson is a Leaf! Nick Robertson, welcome home. Toronto Maple Leafs have signed Nick Robertson to a 1-year contract extension for the restricted free agent. 1 year, $875,000 against the cap. This is obviously an awesome deal for the Leafs. It's a player who can score potentially 20 goals this upcoming season for less than $900,000. But it's a great deal for the player too. It's a great deal for what the player wants. Everyone gets what they want here. What do the Leafs want? The Leafs want the best team possible. Have they had luck in recent memory doing that? No! A regular season, yeah. Relatively well documented, the other stuff. Anyway, they want the best team possible. The Leafs have a very weak left side. They have Matthew Knies, who is good, but he's going into his second year in the NHL. They have Bobby McMann, who is good, but he's going into his second year in the NHL. And then after that, their options are like Max Domi, who's probably going to play left wing the least out of any of the forward positions. Probably going to be center or a right wing. Who could you put there? Yarncroke? No, I think they prefer to have him on the right. Pontus Holmberg. They're going to put Pontus Holmberg there. No! Connor Dewar? No! Both those guys are fine. Both those guys I want on my team, but you need goals? Well, that's what Knies is for. That's what Bobby McMann is for. First of all, that's a very short list. I don't know if you noticed. That's 2 guys. Second of all, if one of them gets hurt, it's 1, and if both of them gets hurt, it's none! Second of all, if one of them gets hurt, it's 1, and if both of them gets hurt, it's nobody! And third, goals are good! You're supposed to score them! The team with the most at the end of the game wins, and Nick Robertson knows how to score goals. He had 14 last year, and it wasn't even a complete year with barely any ice time. And there's the problem. Nick Robertson requested a trade, and I believe it was made public on July 1st. The worst possible time he could have done it. We had this discussion on the Steve Dangle podcast the other day, mostly me and Adam going back and forth. I think Robertson's trade request came too late. I think you do that sort of thing before the draft, and then when all the GMs are there in person, you have a better chance of your GM accommodating your trade request. Moves are in the air. People are trading picks here, there, and everywhere. People are silly at the draft. Adam thinks it came a little too early in the offseason. I think what we can both agree on is you don't do it July 1st. Like, okay, all summer after July 1st, we've been talking about, you know what? The Leafs left side is weak. You know how we know that? Because it got to like July 5th and we were like, oh, so that's just like their group then. And any Leafs fan who's watched anything over the past year is like, oh, Nick Robertson slots into that lineup easy. Probably on the left. Too bad he had already asked for a trade nearly a week ago. The reason that he wanted out, it is totally understandable. Listen, you only get one career. Alan Walsh said that on a recent episode of Agent Provocateur. You only get one career and you don't necessarily have a lot of years to do it. During your career, you're supposed to make money for the rest of your life. Ideally, generational wealth. Wouldn't that be nice? Nick Robertson was a goal-a-game player in junior, and he's like, I know I can score goals. Look at the way this guy plays. He shoots like a player with confidence in his shot. There are other players you have to beg to shoot. Robertson is not one of them. He believes in his shot, and you know why? It often goes in. But the problem is the Leafs won't let him use his shot because they won't let him play. He's not getting enough ice time. Heck, in the games where he's playing, he's not getting enough ice time, and that's if he's playing. There are a bunch of games last season where he wasn't even on the ice. He was a scratch or worst, sent down. But the longer this summer dragged on, the more you look at this Leafs roster up front and you're like, they're not adding to it. It is very literally the exact same group of forwards they went into last year's playoffs with, minus Tyler Bertuzzi. And even though the cap went up, it's more expensive because Matthews, Nylander, and Domi, and McMahon all got raises. Every team goes into every season with some question marks, and the Leafs' big question mark up front, besides can the big guys get it done again, can Matthews repeat or improve on the best goal-scoring performance of the cap era, it's can the Leafs' other pieces, can the Leafs' younger pieces, because this is a younger team or a team with younger players than we're used to seeing out of the Leafs, at least in recent years. Can the younger players on this team take a step? Namely, Robertson. Bobby McMann barely fits into that conversation because he was a late bloomer. He's in his mid to late 20s. Matthew Knies, he fits in that conversation. He was good last year. He had 35 points. Meh. You got to do better than that. Nick Robertson had 14 goals. That's not bad, but meh, you got to do better than that. Tyler Bertuzzi had 21 goals last season, and poof, they're gone. Robertson had 14. You lose both those guys, you lose 35 goals out of your lineup. Matthews scored 69 last season. Let's say he only scores 60 this year. There's another 9 goals you got to make up. How do you make that up? Well, here's one way. Number 1, you don't lose Robertson. You had 14 right back in there. Number 2, Robertson scores more than that. Okay. And then guys like Nyes and McMahon, and you understand. And Craig Berube. Listen, you can be mad at the organization. You can be mad at the old coach. Listen, the old coach isn't here. It's a new coach. It's a new guy. And he likes goals. Craig Berube. All right. The Blues were big and mean when they won the Stanley Cup and all that. Go look at Craig Berube's teams. They had guys who could score. Even the biggest cement heads in hockey will acknowledge, well, you do need to score more goals than the other guys. Now, does Robertson's game have blemishes? Yeah, you bet. His skating could use some work. His defensive side of the game, holy mackerel, could use some work. Now, a lot of that is on Nick. He's got to get better in all those places. But some of that is on coaching. People have been making their projected lineups for this upcoming season. All right, Matthew Nyes is on the first line and Bobby McMahon's on the second line. I don't necessarily think it's going to work out that way. Nyes on the first line is pretty likely. Not guaranteed, but pretty likely. In terms of the second line, I think I'd rather see Robertson there to start the season at very least than I would McMahon. McMahon is a much better defensive player. He's bigger, he's meaner. That's why I put him on the third line. That's what your third line is for. Big and mean, and he's much more likely to be a shutdown type of player. A player who could play on your shutdown line than Robertson is right now. Which means you're probably playing with like Tavares, Nylander, maybe both. You're a goal scorer, Nick. This team has playmakers. Yes, you got Austin Matthews, but you could play with Mitch Marner, potentially. You could play with William Nylander, potentially. You could play with Max Domi, potentially. And on the back end, say what you want about the contracts or the age, but this team is going to be better at moving the puck. Tanev and Ekman Larson, Liljegren, I mean, he's making $3 million. That doesn't make him a better player, but he better take a step. And he's going to, because this is a good kid. This is a competitive kid. This is a smart kid. And you might say to yourself, well, if he's so smart, then what was the whole summer about? What are you focusing on the past for? I tell you what, here's how I'm treating it as a Leafs fan, as a guy who was hurt by the idea that Nick Robertson no longer wanted to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. It's water under the bridge. It's in the past. He's signed. He's here. Nick Robertson is a Leaf. I don't want anyone holding this against him. I don't want anyone booing him. Because it's going to build. It's going to build. When they do the home opener and they have all the players lined up and they go through them numerically, at the very end of the line, they do everyone wearing a letter. All the assistant captains, the captain. Unless Tavares isn't wearing a letter at all this year, which I would find hard to believe, Robertson is going to be the last guy. Oh, wait, which number's OEL wearing? All right, well, he's going to be one of the last guys. And it's going to build, and it's going to build, and I want a big ovation for Nicky Bobby. Do I think it was smart to ask for a trade request on July 1st? No. Do I think it was smart for him to dig in and ask for a trade for a team with a better opportunity for him? Meanwhile, he's literally on the team with the best opportunity for him. Do I think that was smart? No. But I think we can all empathize with getting upset, getting fiery, getting competitive in a certain situation, and then understanding what's in front of you, understanding the opportunity lying at your feet, and understanding, you know what? The smart thing to do here is get on with it. The smart thing to do here is put my pride aside and do what I need to do. Now, Nick Robertson's only job is to take the opportunity instead of having it handed to him. And that's a challenge that I think he's going to love and relish. He needs to be there for the very beginning of camp. This contract guarantees that. If at the end of the season this doesn't work out, he doesn't belong here, he's not going to get his opportunity here, he no longer wants to be here, you're only here 1 year. If Robertson tries his hardest and does his best and improves the way that he and we all think he can improve, the worst case scenario here is he does well this season and the Leafs want to keep him and offer him millions of dollars. I mean, there's also the scenario where he just, stinks. But I don't think that's going to happen, and neither do the Leafs, and that's why they didn't trade him. Now, where does this leave the Leafs? How do they afford this? Oh, it's very interesting. So, Darren Dreger reported that the Leafs are working on Yanni Hakanpää, who, this has been the story of the summer. On July 1st, it was reported he signed a 2-year contract paying him $1.5 million per season for the big hulking right-handed defenseman. Then it came out that, he may never play again, or he may have a knee injury, something like that. The Leafs are working with him. Chris Johnston pointed out he's probably going to be at Leafs training camp. And Darren Dreger also pointing out that Max Pacioretty is something that the Leafs are working on. What? Okay. They're up against the cap, though, aren't they? How are they going to afford all this? I know. According to Puckpedia, after Nick Robertson's 1-year $875,000 cap hit, the Toronto Maple Leafs have $400,333 in cap space. Hakanpää is rumored to be making $1.5 million. That's not enough. But wait, Connor Timmins, who I'm positive is not going to be on the Toronto Maple Leafs this year unless there's at least a few injuries, makes $1.1 million. If Connor Timmins is put on waivers and claimed or even just traded, that's $1.1 million off the books. So if the Leafs lose Connor Timmins' $1.1 million cap hit and sign Jani Hakanpää to $1.5 million, that would leave the Leafs with $333 in cap space. Exactly $333. I mean, it seems like this is exactly the plan. Now, Steven Lorentz, who was a quality fourth liner for Florida in their cup run, he's on a PTO. How does he get a job in this team? I have no idea. Max Pacioretty, assuming he comes to the Leafs on a PTO, how does he fit onto this team? I have no idea. It's not impossible there could be a trade coming up here. How does Easton Cowan make the team? There are a lot of questions. The preseason is kind of unnecessarily long. There's a bunch of games and guys get hurt. That obviously adds a wrinkle to everything. But when it comes to Hakanpää and Timmins, I'm pretty positive that's exactly what's going to happen. So, what do you think? Nick Robertson is still a Leaf. Leave a comment in the comment box down below. But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Nick, I'm so glad you're here, man.